Hey there everybody, and welcome back. In today's video, for those of you interested in creating your own social or sharing app, I'm going to be walking you through that right now. Now, a couple of things to note. This is designed to be a web app. You can create a mobile app version if you're interested. I'm not going to be supporting or showing how to do that. I'll do a high-level overview at the end of this video, and we will be doing this in an hour or less. Now, I'm going to move fast, so let's just go ahead and jump straight in. A couple of things you're going to need to set up first, so I'll run through those and then you can pause the video. First thing, you'll need to set up your AppGyver account. This is completely free, don't worry about that. And basically you'll just go to appgyver.com to show you how quick and easy that is. I'll open it in an incognito tab, and you'll just click on Community Edition, log in, and set up your account here. No credit card required, it is a free account, and then you're all set. Next up, you're going to need to go to CodelessFix.com and pay for your copy of the application. If you want, you can view some of my other YouTube videos and try to build it yourself, but it is a pretty technical process. Now, I'll go through the demo in a minute, but to buy your copy, you'll click the button here and go to the CodelessFix store and find the social or sharing app and download it. Now, when you buy your copy, the link expires within 24 to 48 hours, so make sure you download it as soon as you buy it. And then lastly, you will need a Firebase account, which they do have a free tier, and I'll walk through performance and upgrades in a minute on this. But the way that I have this set up, you manage everything. So you're not reliant on me. When you download your copy of this application, it's your Firebase account with your database, which is not difficult to set up, and it'll be your URL. So basically you own everything. And then lastly, after you've gone to console.firebase.google.com or just firebase.google.com, sign in with your Gmail account or create one if you don't have one. Last thing is Hostinger. Now, this is my recommendation, although you can use whatever platform you prefer, but basically you need a hosting platform where you will buy a URL. So for example, CodelessFix.com is a URL. You'll buy that and they'll manage the hosting for you. So you'll need to set up whatever deal or promotions, but this has been a service that I've been using. So that's the one I'm going to be using for this video. So now that we've covered those 3 or 4 things that you're going to need, next up, we're going to go through the app demo really quickly. So when you go to the home page, if at any point you want to see what it would look on a mobile device, you can right click and click inspect, and this will be Google Chrome's DevTools. You can view it as more of a kind of like a mobile application to a degree. But what we're going to do, main page. You have a couple of these images, which all of the things I'm about to show you can be updated or changed. This can all be customized to your needs. Now, these items here are stored in Firebase. To add an item, you can basically just click here, fill out this form, click update, and it'll add it. The idea here is if you want to give news updates to your user base, whatever the case is. Now, the next part is the actual social part. All of this can be updated. I created this to be very generic because I don't know what you're going to need. So I have 3 categories, and each of those categories have 5 subcategories. So we have topics 1 through 5. We have categories 1 through 5, and then, you guessed it, ratings 1 through 5. Now you can rename each of these buttons, and you can rename the categories, etc. And then basically I created this similar to a Coffee Canine app that I made a long time ago. So if I click topic 1, you'll see we have Grounds and Hounds, Folgers, just different things, and you'll see we have different ratings throughout. Now if I click on this one, I have the option to update the post with some unnecessary detail and necessary detail. And if I keep scrolling down, we'll find one that I did not post. I can't update this one because I did not post it. That is by design. Now you can click Make a Post, which is the same as clicking the plus button up here, and you would post all of the details. So we would type in 1. I'm just going to put 1s across the board, and then click Submit, and it'll put a default image in. And now when I go to topic 1, you'll see it's the newest one on top, and we can click it and see all of the details. That's all there is to it. Now, you will also have the option to go to boards, which is my favorite part of the app. So the way that this works, these boards are unique to users. So the idea here is if you click board 1, you'll see I have all of this information and then some missing information because there's nothing there. So the idea is you can update any of these sections. So we have sections 1 to 10. You have content and then an image URL. This application does not enable the sharing of data. So you cannot upload or download files, but you can share image URLs to display images in the application. So I have an image of a church here. So we have different post options and other options down here. And the idea is if you want to update the picture in line 10, you would click it, click post, and it'll update the details here. So I don't actually have an image URL handy, so what I will do is I'll just post this, and you'll see posted by my username, the letters AA. And then if I go back and click board, it is still there. Now here's the cool thing about the board. If you click update boards, you have 3. Now you can, at any time, if I wanted to copy this and just put in the letter P and save changes, I'm changing the board to board P. So there's nothing there because board P is a new board. So the idea here is if a user wants to add a board, they click update, they name it and click start, and it creates a database entry. And then they can share this name with anyone else. So here's an example. I just created this board here, and I want to share it with some friends. So I tell them, hey, go to my social sharing app website, type in this board name. It's designed to be a little bit unique, and then just click Save Changes. So in this case, if I'm a new user, I would log in, I go to the home page, I say, okay, I'm going to go to Boards, Board 1, nothing there. So I go back to Boards, and I click Update, and Board 1, I just put in the board name, and click Save. And then if you refresh, you'll see all of a sudden, now there's some data here. And when I click it, I can access that board again, but only people with the board name can access it. Now, I'm not going to cover security in this video. Security is going to be managed by you. The idea is I'm providing you with the raw data to create this file, the social sharing app. You're going to manage security, users, and data, and all of that on your end. But I will walk through high-level overview, but for liability reasons, not covering anything else. Lastly, you have a My Account page where you can update your profile. Your image will be displayed here. You have your username or About Me and username and your ability to sign out if you need to. I also do not include terms and conditions or privacy policy for liability reasons. All right, so that's all that there is to that. So now let's go through actually doing this, building this app. So you'll go through, you'll buy it from the CodelessFix website, and then at that point, you should have a zip folder. So we're going to right-click on this folder, and you're going to extract it through whatever means you can. So I'm going to use WinRAR, and we're just going to extract it to our desktop. Now at this point, you'll get a file that looks like this. It should be a GPG file. So in the zip folder, there's just one file. So now we're going to go to our newly created AppGyver account, and we're going to bring this file in. So we're just going to click Create New. And name, we'll call it Social1. You'll call yours whatever you want your app to be. And then before you click Create, click this Import From File, select File, and then find the file that you pulled. So you're not uploading your zip file, you're uploading the file that was within that zip file. And then click Create. Now, this should not take that long, usually a minute or two. So while this is going, I'm going to go over to Firebase, and we're just going to get this set up to save us some time. So in Firebase, when you land at your home page, you shouldn't have any projects if you're new to Firebase. The prompts are very easy to get started. You're creating a free account. Don't set up your credit card info or anything like that. The basic accounts are free, but if you create a paid account and you do not set up your application correctly, it's going to be posting a lot of data and very easily run up some large bills. So we're going to show how to avoid that in a minute. So first things first, we're going to add a project. So we'll call this Test 1. Now make a note of this right here. This is very important. This is your project ID. you need to make sure that you're referencing your project ID and not your project name. If you're going through this setup and you have some issues, this is likely one of the mistakes that's being made. These two are not the same. Your project ID is kind of irrelevant. What matters, again, is this project ID. So right here, I just copied this. We'll need that in a second, so follow along. Now we're going to click Continue. I'm going to keep the analytics support and go to default. You don't have to, it's up to you. Now, while this is creating, feel free to go set up your Hostinger account. I'm going to put a link in the description, and if you're on the CodelessFix website, it'll be the next video to show how to upload your files. This start to finish to log in and upload, if you already have an account, shouldn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes. So, Firebase is still getting set up. So while that's finishing up, we're going to jump back to AppGyver. So first things first, we need to update 2 variables. So in AppGyver, if you're not familiar with the platform, I highly recommend you pause the video here, go watch some of my other tutorials, go to CodelessFix.com, check those out. If you start editing things, it's going to be very easy to mess up this application. Good news is you can re-import it. Bad news is you'll lose any progress you've made. So once in AppGyver, click this little slider here, and we have 2 to update. First, we are looking for project name, and make sure you're under the app variable. When you select project name, over here on the right, you should see sample do not delete. Ironically, we're deleting that. Then you're going to paste in the project name that you copied from Firebase. Now, if you've lost that project name, I'll show you how to get it back. When you've logged into your Firebase account, there's a couple of things. You'll see it up top in between these 2 dashes here. So in this case, mine is test 58A93. Or if you go to build and you go to really any area of the app, so for example, Firestore database, you should be able to see it once we get this set up. So if you've lost it, or if you have or haven't, it doesn't really matter. 2 things we need to set up are authentication and Firestore database. So we're going to click Create Database, and then start in production mode. Choose the location closest to you. Make sure you pay attention to this since it cannot be changed. Actually, choose the location closest to your user base because it's going to help to improve speed. I'll click Enable, and we'll wait for this to get provisioned and set up. So now, when it comes to rules, this is what you're going to need to manage on your end. I am changing this rule to true, but I do not recommend this for you because this means the database is open. Now, in the case of most social or sharing apps, I don't typically think that there's a ton of, in basic apps, there's not a ton of user-specific data that could put them at risk if it's lost. So I highly recommend follow any and all local, federal rules, guidelines, basically any law, rule, or guideline that's applicable to you, your app, and your users related to security. Make sure you set up your rules accordingly. I'm setting this up this way just for testing, but this is where you would modify your security rules on your end. Now, once this is set up, you'll see your name right here. This is the ID of your project. The next thing we need to do is set up authentication. We'll click Get Started, and this is very, very simple. We're just using email and password. Just click Enable, Save, and that's it. Now, your users will be displayed here. You can monitor, disable, delete, reset passwords as needed. So if a user needs their password reset, you can just tell them to email you, and then boom, you can do it here. Now, one other thing to note is if you go to templates, you have the ability to edit the template for the email address verification. Some things you can edit, some things you can't, but this is a great way to make it look a little bit more custom. The default is not the most visually appealing or professional, but I don't really think it's supposed to be. So you can edit that here. Now, once you've done this, you are all set. Make sure, again, copy that project ID. It is not the one with the dashes, it's the one in between the forward slashes. And again, Firestore database, it's right here. So once you have that copied in project name, the initial value, update it right here. And then we're going to need to grab an API key. So at this point, save your AppGyver app just to be safe. And then I'm going to show you how to do the basic setup for Android, iOS, and your web app. Now we're going to do the web app first. You can ignore the setup for the other two if you don't need them. So what we're going to do from here is if you go to Project Settings, you'll see we have a web API key here. Now when we scroll down, there's no apps for the project. So first thing, we'll set up a web app and we'll just call it test123. Name yours whatever you need to name yours. If you need Firebase hosting, you can do that and click register. And then at this point, my recommendation would be to put these windows side by side if you can. So for the API key, you're going to paste in this API key here in initial value. And then I'll click save. So we've updated the value for API key and for project name. Now, this is not the most secure method because they're just built into the app and anyone can grab them. But again, I'm not managing the security. That's something you would need to figure out. So now we're going to go over to our data tab and connectors. And first things first, I would recommend clicking this on and off. It'll delete all the data here. Right now it's tied to my sample database, so if that database gets full, I'm not paying for anything, so it'll just freeze up or just stop working. So in this case, I'm deleting all of this information to avoid sending anything to the wrong location. So you want your page to be completely blank like this. Then the next thing you're going to do is fill out all the relevant details. So in this case, we're putting these side by side. The bottom half is all already available in Firebase on the right-hand side. So I'm going to go kind of quickly to keep this video short, but the idea is you're finding web app API key right here. You're going to look for the web app ID, which is right here. And you're just matching the fields from right to left or left to right. So project ID is next, so you'll see that right here. And the text should be very clear what is what. So auth domain, measurement ID, storage bucket, message sender ID. And you want to make sure to keep all of these details safe. Don't share these with the general public, again, for security reasons. Now, at this point, we are going to go ahead and go to continue to console. So this is already set up, so you're all good to go with the web app. Now we would click add app, and let's just start off with Android. Fill out your specific information here. Don't follow what I'm doing. I'm just doing this as a sample. And you would fill out your debug signing certificate if you need to. Once you click the button, you'll see we're going to download our config file. Add your SDK if you need to. This will likely be needed in the setup in AppGyver, and just continue to console. If you lose that JSON file, it is available right here in Firebase. Then all you need to do, we'll put this side by side again. I open this in Visual Studio Code, but you can open it in whatever program you need. So you'll see we're going to go to Android. So first things first, we would hit Control F and see what we need. We need our app ID. So we'll type in app ID, and you'll see we have our app ID right here. Then we would need our API key, so you would type in API, and you'll see it's highlighted right here. This is the API key. So everything that you need, you can search for and find it in the quotes. So we have this set up, really no need to, I'm not adding it in because I'm not setting it up for Android, but I'll show you the setup for Apple as well. So we'll do the same thing. I'll just put in some random words, and then you would put in your App Store ID. You would want to download your config files once this portion has finished. So Google Services Info plist, next. All of this, add Firebase SDK if you need to in AppGyver, or if you need it for whatever dev requirements you have. but you can access it again here. So I will go click this file and once more open it in Visual Studio Code. Same exact process. In this case, we are looking for app ID, which is right here. So you could just look for ID, Control F, ID, and find client ID. And then API key. You'll see if we hit Control F, it's right here. So it's the same process. You're just matching up. Make sure you find the correct app ID, the correct API key, and the correct client ID. So the app ID up here, I misled you a minute ago. This client ID is for client ID down here. App ID should be under app ID. So you'll just scroll through and find your app ID. So really, once you've filled out your app ID, it'll be in here somewhere. I think I left mine blank, so that's why it's probably not showing up here. But just make sure you're finding the correct option for each of these. I'm going to disable it because I don't need it right now, but that would be my recommendation for you. So once you have this configured, click Save. And if you don't need authentication, you can actually click here to disable the connector. Actually, I wouldn't recommend that personally, but your other option would be go to Firebase and choose Initial View. Before you remove the authentication, pick your home page and then click Remove Authentication and click Save. That will remove the login page. I'll assume most people want that, so I don't recommend doing that. And then if you need to, you can click on Navigation and choose what your home page is going to be, because it'll try to default to the Firebase authentication view, which you've basically disabled. So you'll need to configure that and set that up. So we've done the basic. Now it's time to do some initial testing. Click Launch, Open App Preview Portal, and then click your app that you've just set up. Now it should take you to a page like this, and don't worry, you can swap out your pictures. I'll show you shortly. But the idea here is, first things first, we need to see if we can actually log in. So I'm going to type in the support email for CodelessFix, and then just a sample password. Now I'm going to try to log in, and you'll see I'm not an authenticated user. So now I'm going to click Create Account and Create, and I'll get a little toast message saying, hey, your verification email has been sent. Now what we're going to do is we're basically just waiting for that email to come through, and then we just kind of essentially wait for that to come through. When it does, it'll just be that generic email template we saw earlier. I see mine just came through on my mobile device, so I clicked it and it says your email has now been verified. So now I will click Login, and now I'm able to log into the app. So far, so good. The only thing to note here is all of this data is still from my database and my Firebase account. So I'm going to walk you through how to get that connected to yours. So first things first, we are going to go over, you have a couple of choices. Easiest route, since we already have all of this set up, is we're going to go to our Firebase homepage, and we're going to find Firestore database, and we're going to copy this name again. So the idea here is you want this information. I grabbed mine from the URL bar. If you want, you can copy it from your app variables. So you can go to find variable slider and then go to project name. This was your project ID. However you want to get it. We need that now. So all we need to do is go to data, and then you'll see all of these are different data variables in the app. So for board 1, and you're going to repeat this process for all of them. And it's simple, just a little time consuming. You'll click it and you'll see resource URL. Right in here, you'll see sample do not delete. So I'm going to zoom in to make it easier to see. This and this only is what we're deleting, not the slashes, not anything else. So we're going to go into board 1, sample do not delete, and we'll paste in our new project ID. If part of your app doesn't work after you do this, it's because you pasted in the wrong ID. So you need to do that for each one of these. All of these are connected to a sample database. If you don't set them up, then users are going to have the wrong information. Now, I'm going to skip a couple, but you cannot. And this is just to save some time for the video. So again, you'll find your project ID, copy it, paste it in here. Click Save. You don't need to do anything else. The rest of the app's already been configured. So I'm doing it for board 1, category 1. I'm going to ignore feeling 1, and I'll show you why, just to show you how you can troubleshoot. Homepage social, it's very important that this one is also updated. And then again, just to save a little bit of time, we will go back to data and we'll make sure profile details are also set up. So all the profile information will be saved here. Okay, so I've done enough just to walk through the basic setup of this application. But for those of you that are a little confused, we've set up Firebase, so now user data is stored in here, but we need to tell our application where does this data go. Now you'll notice AppGyver's already started updating in the background, and now the data that was here is no longer available, and that's because it's trying to pull from this empty database. So I'm going to show you some testing. But first thing, so you can pause the video, when you're logged into AppGyver, click Data and click on each one of these. Just paste in right here the project. It's directly to the right of project. You're replacing the text sample do not delete with your project ID. Do that for board 1, board 2. Do it for every single one of these. There's about, I would say, 15 to 20. It does not take that long, maybe 10-15 minutes. And again, you're just clicking it, pasting that in, and you're clicking Save. So pause the video here, go ahead and take care of that, and then we'll move on. All right, so now that you've gotten all of that set up, the next thing we're going to do is test out first creating an account. So you've created your account, but you haven't set up user details. So click here, and you'll get this profile not set up. So we'll click OK. And I'm going to click OK, and we're going to click Update Profile. So here, I want to show you how you can see how your database is working. So I have Firebase, the Firestore, which is your home page in Firebase for all of the data. And I'm going to just create a sample profile. So I don't have a URL for an image, so I'm just going to type in the letter A for each and click Update. Now, you see it says updated, but on the right-hand side, nothing happened. I've noticed when you create a collection, sometimes you have to refresh the page for Firebase, and then you'll see we now have a collection for profile details. Every time there's a document, that's a new profile. You'll see About Me and each of these have the values here, so it's connected to the correct database. Now that we have an actual profile, we can try to start using the app. So let's try to add a front page item. So I'm just going to put in the letter A in each one of these categories, and I'll just leave each of these. We'll put the number 1 and click Update. Now, we can click away from the page, as refreshing does not always work that well, and you can see we have it right here. Now, the reason there's no picture, like there was previously, is we did not upload an image URL. You can find images for making sure that, again, they're usable in whatever context you need them on Unsplash and other websites, but we're just going to put in the letter B across the board just to show you how easy it is to update things here. And then I clicked Update, and when I navigate back, now we have A and B. So this part of the app is working, and working as expected. If you need to hide this so other users can't do this, you can set that logic up on your end. Or if you prefer, one other thing that may be worth trying, I'll refresh Firebase over here. If you want, you can actually remove this button, and there's some hidden buttons as well. So we'll go to our home page. So in this container, you'll notice we have My Account button, and then we have this container here with all of these input fields. This container, you'll see, is hidden. So visible is set to false. You can delete this container if you want. I would recommend avoiding that if you're going to need it. But the idea here is, if you have this container set up, what you can do is you can actually create these homepage items from here. So users can't do it. So you just click add document and then add each one of these fields, making sure you're adding those fields exactly. Or you can create a second copy of this app for yourself specifically and only have this page available to you. So however you prefer to do it. Again, if you mess up the name of the field, so if you spell content incorrectly or if you don't have the right capital letters, it's not going to display over here. But this way you can manage it on the back end. Okay, so page 1's working. Let's try out page 2. So if we look at topic 1, you'll see that we have all of the information from our basically like sample database. So in this case, we'll go back to category 1 and you'll see it's empty. And then we'll go back and we will go to ratings, and you'll notice ratings and topic have data already and they shouldn't. And here's how you work through troubleshooting. Anytime you're making changes in the app, for example, in this case, we know it's the data. We know, okay, topic 1 should be empty and it's not. How do we fix this? Go to your data section, go to topic 1, so you're looking through, and you'll see topic 1 here, and we have the incorrect project ID. So, as we know, all we have to do is go grab that project ID from where we have it stored, and in this case, we're just going to update topic 1, click save, and this is a step you've already done. I'm just showing you some troubleshooting steps if things don't look right. We'll do it for feeling 1 as well. And I want to show you how quick AppGyver is to update this. So you want to make these changes before you publish your app to make it quicker. And then now we're going to go to this coffee cup, which you can update. I'll show you in a second. But we'll go to topic 1, and now this is empty. And we'll go to rating 1, and this is empty. So this is now functioning. So now we have to test, is it actually pulling the data? So we'll go to add a post. I'm going to call this post just the letter A. This is category 1 through 5. I'll show you how to update these. This is topics 1 through 5. And then this is rating or feeling 1 through 5. So I'm going to put 1 across the board for everything, and then the default image URL, and click submit. So now, this will be a little scary in the beginning until you figure out what this means, but on Firebase, we're going to click refresh. Now you're going to see all of a sudden we have a bunch of stuff starting to pop up. So we have post category 1, post feeling 1, post topic 1. So here's how this works. We have topics 1 through 5, categories 1 through 5, ratings 1 through 5, which means we are going to have post category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, post feeling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and post topic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In each of these is a document with all of the fields that we filled out. So if we go to topic 1, you'll see we now have a post here. And if I go click on that post, I can update it. Now, this button is hidden if people have the incorrect email. So if your email is not equal to the email or the username is not equal to the username of the person who posted, all they can do is view this data. So you'll see ticket description, you may want to change that text or make this look a little different, but the idea here is this update button is only visible to the people who update it. But if they change their username, it's kind of lost. But you can update everything on the back end. Also important to note is if we were to post in the same forum, these are in order newest, we'll just say on top. So you'll see that new document is created. And when we go to topic 1, 1, 2 is now the newest one, so it's going to appear first. So at this point, categories 1 through 5, they are all working as expected. And if we go to ratings, this is also working. So the ratings are working. Now it's time to check out our board. So board 1, I'm going to show you how this works. It can be a little confusing, but once you get it, you kind of get it. So board 1, we're going to call it secret. And I don't have a URL, so I'll just post the letter A. Now I'm going to click start chat. And read this. This is for the users, basically saying you don't have to click this every time. I'm just going to click OK and save changes. Now, as we know, we click refresh over here, and all of a sudden we have this chat collection called secret with all of these chat items. So now, if I click around the app and I decide, all right, I'm going to go back to boards, and you'll see it's empty. So I'm going to update post 10 with this content, and I'll put an image in picture 10. Now, in this case, there may be some issues that you need to diagnose, so we'll walk through that. So first thing, we need to make sure that the board is set up correctly, which it appears it is. And then we're just going to make sure that we did in fact save our changes, and we're seeing that we're getting this error. So in this case, sometimes it's useful just to see if anything's been messed up with Firebase. And in this particular case, it shouldn't be, so sometimes you just need to log out and log back in just to be safe. Now we have logged in, and we're going to go to our boards, and we see that the board details are saved. So we're just going to click board 1, and we're going to update post 1, and we'll just update the first picture as well. And we'll click post. And we're seeing error with account details. So we're going to make sure that our account is set up correctly. It could be that there was an issue the first time we saved it. So now we're going to go back to the board. We're going to check out our profile details and make sure everything looks correct. It does look correct. So we're going to click on the board, and we will go to post content URL and click post. Now at this point, you'll see if anything actually changes. So up here, we're looking for those details, and it looks like it worked. So then if we wanted to update post 5 and picture 5, and we click post, you'll see those details are here now. And if we go to chat, we'll see this updating in somewhat close to real time. So now if we wanted to update post 9 and click post, you'll see those details have been updated accordingly. So now if we go leave essentially and come back, you'll see that content hasn't updated. So now we need to figure out where it's sending. So this is the last troubleshooting piece I'm going to leave you with. So we're just going to go to board 1, and we're going to look at our post button. Now you'll see that it's sending it to our project name, chat 1, etc. So in this case, there could have just been an issue when the first chat was created. So we're just going to recreate that chat. So we're going to go update board, start or clear chat, and I'm just going to create it with secret 1 just to be safe, and I don't need an image. So we'll start that just to show if it's actually creating it, and save changes. And then you just want to make sure that it's updating over here. Alright, so I went ahead and paused the video. It looked like my browser was just caching the old project name, so there wasn't an issue that you should be running into, but I do want to show you a quick troubleshooting step that may be helpful for you. So you'll notice right now, if I type in secret123 and click start and click OK, that chat pops up here. Now to save it, you would just click Save Changes. Now if at any point you aren't sure where your data is going, you can right-click and click Inspect and go to this Console tab. This does look a little complicated, but when you click Start, you'll see right here it's going to this URL. So you'll see this test is the project ID, and then it'll tell you the document ID. Now I'm getting an error because I'm trying to create one that already exists. But if I add a 4 here, you'll see it works. So just a quick thing to note on troubleshooting. Now in my case, I did those exact troubleshooting steps, and I saw that in the error message it was pulling up my old project name, so I think the browser was just caching the incorrect name. Okay, so now that we have that set up, I'm going to walk through this functionality a bit more because it can be a bit confusing, and you can reconfigure this however you need it. The idea here is a user can go to boards, add a board, click start, they would name it, so that other people don't just get access to it. And they click Save Changes. This button is only needed for the initial setup of that board. So when we click Save Changes, once you've added secret 123, that is saved. And you'll see we have secret 123 over here. So I can click on board 1, and I am now in board 1. So in this case, if I want to update this content, I can click Post, and you'll see if we're getting this error. In this case, unfortunately, it's because it's caching this page from a different version, so to speak. So it's actually pulling this data from the other social sharing app. So my browser basically is kind of getting these two confused. So we can use those troubleshooting steps. So in this case, we'll click Post and see what happens. And you'll see right here, projects, it's showing the project is undefined. So it's not posting to the correct database. So the basic troubleshooting steps that we already know is we can go to our pages, and we're going to go over to boards, and you're looking for, basically we have all of these containers, but this container here that's hidden, the reason it's hidden is we only show it when this button is clicked. But there's a bunch of buttons, and in each of these you'll see that we're sending it to projects and then the project name. Now in my case, the project name is an app variable. So we would go to project name, and you'll see that the variable is here. So it is saved correctly. So the easiest thing to do at this point is to do the rest of the testing in, basically in using incognito, so we don't have this caching issue. So what I'm going to do is I'll go to sign into my account, and we're just going to use a burner email address. All right. So we're going to open up the same app, and I'll just close out the original copy. And we will go to Launch, Open App Preview Portal. And this is something you can do if you have issues as well, especially if you're managing multiple AppGyver apps. So in this case, I will log in. And then I'm going to go to Login. And I'm going to go and basically check those boards again, make sure that they're working. So board 1 is empty, as expected. So we're going to go to Update and see secret 123 is there. So now we're just going to go to the board and see if we can make a post real quick. So we want to update this post with this content, and you'll see it is updating on the right-hand side. So this is how you know that it's a caching issue with your browser. It's now working for me, but it wasn't working before, and all I did was go incognito and Google Chrome. So now we're going to update a couple more things. I want to update item 10. Let's add in some additional details. We'll click Post, and you'll see it updated here, and it also updated over here. So the idea for this board is when users come in, they would say, hey, check out this website. My board name is secret123. Another user saves it by just clicking Save, and then they can access that board. So to give you an example, if I decided, you know what, I want to access board secret1234, I just type in the 4, click Save Changes. I don't need to start because it already exists. And now, when I navigate to this page, it's empty. And when I type in my content, if I want to update content for 10 and click Post, you'll see it is now updated and the rest of them are empty. And if I decide update boards and I want to go back to chat 123, I can do that by just clicking the correct information, and now I'm in the original chat. So this way users can kind of navigate and communicate. And then again, user account details are here. All right, now I will do a more in detail or more in-depth video covering performance basics for this application, but for now, the basics to consider are how often you need user data to be refreshed. So in Firebase, if you go to your You can view it in different pages, but the idea is if you go to Firestore database, you can typically check and see what plan you have or are on. There's tons of different ways to do it. So the general idea though is you're going to want to scroll through. You'll see your plan down here. So currently we're on the Spark plan. This plan right here, pay as you go, is a bit dangerous, and here's the reason. With this application, I just want to give you an example, and I'll show you how to make some changes to this as well. But if we're on this page, so this is the page for ratings 1 through 5. If we click the slider for variables and go down to data variable, and you'll see there's one right here. This is basically just the collection that has all of the posts for this rating. So anyone who said this was 1 out of 5 stars, all of their ratings go here. Now when we click this, if you click on the logic down here, you'll see there's a delay right here. This can be confusing, so all that you need to know is this loop occurs every 5,000 milliseconds. So every 5,000 milliseconds, it's saying, hey Firebase, give me this data. That may not sound that bad, but if you think about it, just 1 or 2 users staying logged in on this page for a day would mean every 5,000 seconds for 24 hours straight, it's constantly requesting that data. If you also factor in that users are going to be posting a lot, interacting a lot, this number can very, very easily match or hit your limits in Firebase. So you'll see your no cost and your pay-as-you-go plans. So I'll cover this in more detail in a separate video. It'll be the probably second or third video, we'll see, in the course, so to speak. But the idea is make sure that you're setting up your app accordingly. So you, in order to configure this, go to every single page. This is most likely only on pages where there's a user post, but just to be safe, so you'll go to 1 to 5 rating, go to variables, so click the slider, go to data variable, and for each of the data variables here, you can adjust this delay to make it better for your app to not be so, let's just say, data intensive. The point here to make is basically that if users just want to refresh the page, this app doesn't work well with refreshing. It's better if they just bounce around between pages. It'll just pull the data on the page reload so they don't have to sit there and wait for it constantly being refreshed. There's no need to have data refreshed at this frequency, in my opinion, but it depends on your app. So go through each individual page. So you'll just click up here, select your page. Again, click the slider, data variable, and adjust that delay. If I'm not mistaken, you may be able to delete this, and then you can basically just require them to refresh the page. It's up to you. Just make sure that you do whatever you can, and then you can always go to Firebase and go to usage, and you can see what your usage and metrics look like and kind of adjust accordingly. Just be very, very careful. The second you go to that Blaze plan, it's going to be very easy for you to go above the limits. It's a high number. 50,000 seems like a lot, but you would be surprised how quickly you can go through that. All right, let's keep going. So at this point, as you can see, this application is up and running. It is fully functional, so we've set it up. Now, the last thing that we need to do at this point is go ahead and go through the build process. So let's get started on that now. All right, so it's time to go ahead and finalize everything. Now, if you need to, you can make your changes. I don't cover customizations in this video just to keep it shorter, but I have tons of tutorials on how to make this app more custom to meet your needs. For example, you can change text, background colors. You can even change this navigation bar up top if you're interested. But what we're going to do is go through build. So I'm going to cover web app first, so that those of you that are using this the way that it should be used or is intended to be used, you can just go ahead and get started. So we're going to click Launch, Distribute, Open Build Services. Now, once you're in Build Services, you'll go to Configure. You can type in a subdomain here if you need to, but it's not really needed. Build Scheme, set it to zip. Image Assets, you'll choose your fav icon or favorite icon, whatever you want to call it. Remember, this, if I'm not mistaken, needs to be a 16 by 16 .ico file. So you would need to make yours online or wherever. Just make sure it's a safe source since you're downloading files. So just basically click Configure, set all the options to meet your needs, then click Build. I typically choose the current client runtime version, and then your version, you would just put whatever version number you want to have set for your application. So most of them typically would be like 1.0.0, then the next one would be 1.0.1, or whatever you want to have set up. Now when you're done, you click refresh and you'll see it's queued. And then at this point, all you need to do is wait for this to say download. When this is done, it'll say download available. You'll get an email. If there's an error, you can correct it. You shouldn't have errors unless you're making huge changes to the app and you're incorrectly formatting or adding in certain things. But usually when you click on the error, it'll be kind of technical, but you can see what you need to fix, or you can post in the forums in AppGyver if you need to. Now, once you click download, it'll give you a zip file. You have a couple choices for this. I'm going to include in the description, as well as at the CodelessFix website in the next video, a more detailed overview of hosting the zip file. But just to show you how quick and easy this is, you would go to, I'm using Hostinger, you go to your manager, and you just click File Manager. And in this case, in your public directory, you would just post all of the contents of that zip folder. So you can extract them all as is to wherever on your desktop, and then you would just upload all of them in this public folder. So for example, when I go to public HTML, which is my home folder for the CodelessFix.app website, I have 3 folders. Inside each of these are all of the contents for that website. So in this case, if we look, I am in the social sharing app, so you'll see all of these will look similar. These are all the different pages from AppGyver. And this is the content. You'll see the fave icon right here. So this will look very familiar. So you don't drag the zip folder in, you just extract it and put all the contents here. Another thing you can do is Hostinger also has a couple of additional choices. So when you go here, you can go to Files, the File Manager options here, or you can go to Auto Installer. And actually, in this case, we would go to Import Website, but this does have a file size limit. When you choose this option, you just click the zip folder and it uploads it for you. So that's another option for you. So at this point, congrats, you pretty much have everything set up and configured. Now it's time for you to make sure your security rules and everything are set up the way that you need them. Again, that is something I can't stress enough. Managing your data, user data, security rules, privacy policy, terms and conditions. I don't help with any of that for liability reasons, so make sure you manage that. And then lastly, we're going to cover the basics of getting your Android and iOS app. So for Android, you click Configure. You will need your key store file and all of your key store details. Don't share that with anyone, but upload it here. Then bundle settings. I would recommend AAB because I believe that's what Google Store or the Google Play Store is now using. And then you'll add in all of these. So again, notification icons, it tells you the resolution next to each. So your icons for the app, your splash screen, notification icons, etc. Save and next. Make sure your permissions are correct or adjust them as needed. And then you would need to add in any missing files here. So for example, I would choose to add in this file, which you'll notice sounds and looks familiar. That is from Firebase. That's that file that we got all of those API details for Android. So you would just go to Firebase and you can go to Project Overview. When you scroll down, you should be able to just find this Android option and click Settings. And you'll see we have Google Services JSON, and here Google Services .json. So you would add it, save and next, and the same process. Once you've configured it once, you don't need to reconfigure unless you need to make changes or security stuff. You would choose your versions, version code, version name, and then click Build. So now this would get started, and then we would configure iOS. So the reason I don't do this on the video is A, I don't have an Apple computer, but B, this is all specific to you. So you need to log into your developer accounts to get these files. And then update all of this information. Same thing with the image assets. Luckily, there are some resolutions shared between the two. I would always recommend starting with larger file sizes or images and scaling down. If you go backwards and you start with a 20 by 20, and then you move and resize that to 120 by 120. It's going to be very pixelated, but upload all these image assets, go to Save and Next, make sure that your usage strings are set up for your application, and then same thing here, Google Services Info plist, just go over to Firebase. So in this case, we would go find our iOS one and download this file, and then you would upload it here, Save and Next. And then lastly, you guessed it, just set your version details for whatever your needs are, and then click Build. And then once you're done, this will set or queue this, and when you refresh the page, you'll see we have an error message here, which is pretty clear. It's going to be because I haven't uploaded the necessary files. So no keystore file downloaded. That's pretty clear. I need to upload a keystore file. This one is queued. This one is queued. You'll be able to download all of the relevant files once they're done. So when you have your web app, you can extract the files, upload them manually to your website, or use the import tool from your web provider, which again, there's a cost to paying for your URL, and there's a storage or hosting cost as well. Then you have your Android or mobile tablet. This would be, you just upload those files to Google Play, and you download and upload your iOS files as well. And then congrats, you are all set up. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, head on over to CodelessFix.com, fill out the form at the homepage, or drop them in the comment box below, and I'll see you all in the next video.